Hello dear students. In my previous session, I dealt with the first two parts of Vandana Shiva's article, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in the Forest. We discussed about Vandana Shiva's ecological journey with Chipko movement and Navadhanya movement. She started Navadhanya movement in the year 1987 and Navadhanya farm in the year 1994 in the lower elevation of Himalayan region of Uttarakhand. We also discussed about biodiversity, biodiversity-based living economies, biodiversity intensive form of farming. And today we are going to discuss an entirely different topic from the first two that we discussed. Before going to begin, I would like to share a very few information with you people. Today we all fail to remember that nature is the source of our lives. The process of human life is against the nature. Very often we see the most devastating natural calamities, natural catastrophes across the globe. The activities of human beings such as explosions, major fire, shipping, aviation, railway accidents, and the release of toxic substances to the environment causes a huge damage in the ecosystems. And you may know 85% of the wildland fire in the United States of America caused by human activities, human actions such as burning the debris, negligently discarded cigarettes, and the act of arson, deliberately setting the fire to the forest. Thousands of animals were perished in the Australian bushfire last year that we have seen, and countless living organisms were injured and homeless. This is all because of the human devastation. This is all because of the man-made destruction of the nature. One of the most shocking information that I would like to bring to everyone's knowledge: in the span of around 40 years, between 1970 to 2014, the global wildlife population is decreased by 60%. In the span of 40 years, we have lost 60% of the wildlife population in the world. So it is everyone's duty and responsibility to recognize each and every member of the earth community, earth family as subjects before the law, with the right to the protection of the law and to an effective remedy for all the human activities, for all the human actions that violate the nature, that violate the wildlife. Dear students, today we have to maintain a dynamic balance between our rights and the rights of nature on the basis of what is good, what is best for the earth as a whole. Let us see what Vandana Shiva tells in the next part, that is rights of nature on the global stage. She begins, when nature is a teacher, we co-create with her. We recognize her agency and her rights. That is why it is significant that Ecuador has recognized the rights of nature in its constitution. In April 2011, the United Nations General Assembly, inspired by the Constitution of Ecuador and the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth, initiated by Bolivia, organized a conference on harmony with nature as a part of Earth Day celebrations. So Vandana Shiva begins, nature is a teacher. We co-create with her. We recognize her agency and her rights. Here, when nature is a teacher, yes, nature teaches us many things. Nature teaches us there is an order in it. There is an order in the nature. So when nature teaches us, we co-create with her. Co-creation is nothing but we work in partnership with nature. We work in collaboration with nature and we create something. So co-creation is all about recognizing the order already existed in the nature, and we recognize her agency. Agency is nothing but the role of the nature in our lives. And we recognize her agency and her rights. We not only recognize the role of nature in our lives, but also we recognize the rights. It is very essential and it is inevitable to recognize, to give the rights for the nature. And that is why it is significant that Ecuador has recognized the rights of nature in its constitution. So, you may know Ecuador is one of the South American countries and the first country to recognize the rights of nature in its constitution in the year 2008. So, Ecuador is one of the South American countries which has a very rich landscape and wildlife. The Ecuador landscape encompasses Amazon forest and a very rich wildlife. So Ecuador is the first country to recognize the rights of nature in its constitution. In April 2011, the United Nations General Assembly, inspired by the Constitution of Ecuador and Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth initiated by Bolivia. United Nations General Assembly, United Nations Organization. The headquarters of United Nations is in New York. And the United Nations General Assembly, inspired by these two South American countries, Ecuador and Bolivia, both of them are South American countries, Latin American countries. United Nations Organization, inspired by these two, Ecuador, it is inspired by the rights of nature that Ecuador has given in its constitution in the year 2008, and also the Bolivia. Bolivia has declared the rights of Mother Earth in its constitution in the year 2010. You should see the articles of the Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth. There Bolivia says, Mother, the very first article in its constitution is, Mother is also a living thing that we have not understood. So Ecuador has given rights to the nature in the year 2008, and in the year 2010, Bolivia proclaimed the rights of Mother Earth. Next, in April 2011, the United Nations General Assembly, inspired by Ecuador and Bolivia, organized a conference on harmony with nature as a part of Earth Day celebrations. If you don't know, when we celebrate the Earth Day, we celebrate Earth Day on April 22nd. So we celebrate Earth Day in order to support the environment. It is celebrated all over the world, across the globe, to support the environment. United Nations General Assembly organized a conference on harmony with nature. The title that they have given for that conference is Harmony with Nature. What is harmony with nature? Harmony is nothing but the comradeship with nature, the friendship with nature. There has to be the mutual giving between humans and the nature. So it has organized a conference on harmony with nature as a part of Earth Day celebration on April 22nd. And much of the discussion centered on ways to transform systems based on domination of people over nature, men over women, and the rich over poor into new systems based on partnership. United Nations General Assembly organized a conference on harmony with nature as a part of Earth Day celebration. Many discussions were taken place in the conference, and most of the discussions were centered on the domination of human over nature. So what are we doing today? We are dominating over the nature. We are exploiting the nature. We are distracting the nature. When I say nature, we are distracting the plants, trees, organisms. We are not respecting the other living things. Domination of people over nature and men over women. We are living in a patriarchal society where man is the dominant creature. What we do, we always dominate over women. And also the rich over poor. So we have these systems where man, exploit the nature, men exploit the women, and the rich always dominate the poor. So these discussions were taken place in the United Nations General Assembly's conference to alter these systems from domination to collaboration. So it says it is not the domination, there has to be the collaboration, there has to be the mutual giving, there has to be the partnership between humans and nature, there has to be the partnership between men and the women, and the rich and the poor. We should not dominate over the nature. She continues, the UN Secretary General's report, Harmony with Nature, issued in conjunction with the conference, elaborates on the importance of reconnecting with nature. So UN Secretary General's report was also given on the same day of the conference. It says, ultimately, environmentally destructive behavior is the result of a failure to recognize that human beings are an inseparable part of nature and that we cannot damage it without severely damaging ourselves. So the UN Secretary General's report says that we human beings, we should have that unperishable bondage with nature. We should not dominate over the nature. So the report of United Nations General Assembly was also was given on the same day of the conference, and that elaborates on the importance of reconnecting with nature. It speaks about the significance of reconnecting with nature. So the General Secretary report says, ultimately, environmentally destructive behavior is the result of failure to recognize that human beings are an inseparable part of nature and that we cannot damage it without severely damaging ourselves. The report says, today we are exploiting the nature, we are dominating over the nature. That is only because of our misconception, misinterpreted conception that we have. What is that misconception? That we human beings think that we are separated from nature. We have already separated ourselves from nature. We don't realize that we are an inseparable part of nature. So it says that human beings are an inseparable part of nature and that we cannot damage it without severely damaging ourselves. Whatever your conception may be, but you cannot damage, you cannot dominate, or you cannot exploit the nature without severely damaging yourself. Which means if you are exploiting or if you are dominating the nature, definitely you are also exploiting yourselves. That's what the report says. You cannot damage the nature without severely damaging yourself. So next, she continues, separatism is indeed at the root of disharmony with nature and violence against nature and people. So here we should understand what is separatism. Separatism is the state of being separated from a large group. Here, separatism is indeed at the root of disharmony with nature. I have told harmony is nothing but your mutual giving or the friendship or the comradeship with nature. Here, we people are separating from nature because we have the strife, we have the violence towards the nature. We have the violence with the nature. And as the prominent South African environmentalist Cormac Cullinan points out, apartheid means separateness. Here, Vandana Shiva has mentioned one of the very famous environmentalists from South Africa, Cormac Cullinan. In one of his essays, he points out that apartheid means separateness. So we all have studied about apartheid or racism. Racism is nothing but it is the discrimination of people on the basis of their skin color. It is the segregation of the people on the basis of their skin color. Apartheid and racism are one are the same. Cormac Cullinan, he points out, he says, apartheid means separateness. Is he really referring to the discrimination or whatever we call exploitation of the human beings? No. He says The world joined the anti-apartheid movement to end the violent separation of people on the basis of color. So Cormac Cullinan says, when the racism or the apartheid was taking place in South Africa, the racism has taken place in many countries like America and South Africa. When this racism has taken place, the world had come together to end this violence, discrimination of people. Today, so we have the great leaders, very prominent leaders like Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. These prominent leaders have fought for the freedom of blacks, and we have studied about that. Here, Cormac Cullinan says that apartheid in South Africa was put behind us. Today, we need to overcome the wider and deeper apartheid and eco-apartheid based on the illusion of separateness of human from nature in our minds and in our lives. See, as he says, the world had come together to end this violence, discrimination over the blacks. They fought for the equal fundamental rights. Today, the world has to come together to end this apartheid, but it is an eco-apartheid. You should know the meaning of this term. Apartheid is nothing but the discrimination of people on the basis of their skin color. Here, eco-apartheid is nothing but the discrimination of nature. It is the separation of human beings from the nature. Because we are, dominating over the nature, we are exploiting the nature, we are going away from the nature. We have a misconception, we have an illusion that we can be survived without nature, but it is wrong. No living existence can live without nature. So this illusion, this misconception has to be overcome, has to be stopped. Today we need to overcome the wider and deeper apartheid and eco-apartheid. He says the wider and deeper. It is not only in India, or it is not only in a particular place. It has spread all over the world. The world has this perception, misconception that we can live without nature. One example that I can give you, that just to construct a road, only in Bangalore city, more than 3,000 trees were cut down. Just to construct a 40-kilometer road, more than 3,000 trees were, cut down. So why are we doing this? We think that even without trees we can live, but it is not. It is the illusion. It is our misconception. So he says, today we need to overcome the wider and deeper apartheid and eco-apartheid based on the illusion of separateness of human from nature in our minds and lives. We have to stop this misconception. We have to give up this idea, give up these ideologies from our lives and minds. Only then we could conserve the nature and we can live with the nature. And even Cormac Cullinan says that it is not the domination, it is not the exploitation, it is the collaboration, it is the partnership, it is the friendship that you have with nature. Only if you have the partnership with nature, you can create and you can help the things to grow in nature. Otherwise, you are not only going to destroy the nature, you are also going to destroy yourself. Dear students, today we discussed about the rights of nature on the global stage, and let us discuss the next part in our next session. Thank you.